This deeply related to this idea is the argument you've made that kind of shocks some people, where you say our competitors building ASICs, they could literally, all their chips are cheaper already today, but they could literally price them at zero. Our objective is they could price them at zero, and you would still buy an NVIDIA system because the total cost of operating that system, power, data center, land, etc., the intelligence out is still a better bet than buying a chip, even if it's given to you for free.
Because the land, power, and shell is already $15 billion.
Right. Yeah. So we've taken a crack at kind of the math on that, but walk us through your math, because I think for people who don't spend as much time here, that it just doesn't compute. How could it possibly be that you were pricing your competitors' chips at zero, given the expense of your chips, and it still is a better bet?
There's two ways to think about it. One way is, let's just think about it from a perspective of revenues.
Yes.
Okay. So everybody's power limited. And let's say you were able to secure 2 more gigawatts of power. Mm. Well, that 2 gigawatts of power you would like to have translate to revenues.
Yes.
So your performance or tokens per watt was twice as high as somebody else's token per watt, because I did deep and extreme co-design. Right. And my performance was much higher per unit energy. Mm-hmm. Then my customer can produce twice as much revenues from their data center. Mm-hmm. And who doesn't want twice as much revenues? And if somebody gave them a 15% discount, the difference between our gross margins was, call it 75 points, and somebody else's gross margins, call it 50 to 65 points. It's not so much as to make up for the 30 times difference between Blackwell and Hopper. Let's pretend Hopper's an amazing chip, an amazing system. Let's pretend somebody else's ASIC is Hopper.
Yeah.
Blackwell's 30 times. So you've got to give up 30x revenues in that 1 gigawatt. Mm-hmm. It's too much to give up. So even if they gave it to you for free, you only have 2 gigawatts to work with. Right. Your opportunity cost is so insanely high. You would always choose the best perf per watt.
So I heard this from one of the CFOs at one of the hyperscalers, that given the performance improvement, right, that's coming out of your chips, again, precisely to that point, tokens per gig, and power being the limiting factor, right, that they had to upgrade to the new cycle. So when you look ahead at Rubin Ultra, at Feynman, does that trajectory continue?
We're building, 6-7 chips a year now?
Yeah.
And each
as
one
part of that system.
That's right. And that system, software is everywhere, and it takes the integration and the optimization across all of those 6-7 chips to deliver on the 30x Blackwell. Right. Now imagine I'm doing this every single year. Bam, 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 bam. And so if you build one ASIC in that soup of ASICs, in that soup of chips, and we're optimizing across that, it's a hard problem to solve.
This does bring me back to where we started about the competitive moat. We've been covering this and investors for a while. We're investors throughout the ecosystem and competitors of yours, from Google to Broadcom. But when I really just first principles around this and say, are you increasing or decreasing your competitive moat? You move to an annual cadence. You're co-developing with a supply chain. The scale is massively bigger than anybody anticipated, which requires scale, both of balance sheet and of development, right? The moves you made both through acquisition and organically with things like NV Fusion, CPX, which we just talked about, all of those things together cause me to believe that your competitive moat is increasing vis-a-vis, at least insofar as building out the factory or the system.
It's at least surprising.
But I think it's interesting that your multiple is much lower than most of those other people. And I think part of that has to do with this law of large numbers. A $4.5 trillion company couldn't possibly get any bigger. But I asked you this a year and a half ago. As you sit here today, if the market's going to, AI workloads are going to 10x or 5x, we know what CapEx is doing, et cetera. Is there any conceivable world in your mind where your top line in 5 years isn't 2 or 3x bigger than it is in 2025? Like, what's the probability that it's actually not much higher than it is today, given those advantages?
I'll answer it this way. Our opportunity, as I described it, is much larger than the consensus.
I'll say it here. I think NVIDIA will likely be the first $10 trillion company. And I've been here long enough. It wasn't that long ago, just a decade ago, as you well remember, that people said there could never be $1 trillion company. Now we have 10, right? And today
But the world's bigger.
Right. And today,
world's
this
bigger.
is the back to the exponentials around GDP and the growth rate.
The world is bigger, and people misunderstand what we do. They remember we're a chip company,
Right.
And we build chips. Boy, do we build chips, and build the most amazing chips in the world. But NVIDIA is really an AI infrastructure company. We are your AI infrastructure partner, and our partnership with OpenAI is a perfect demonstration of that.
Yeah.
That we are their AI infrastructure partner, and we work with people in a lot of different ways. We don't require anybody to buy everything from us. We don't require that they buy the full rack. They could buy a chip. They could buy a component. They could buy our networking. They could buy we have customers just buying only our CPU. Just buy our GPUs and buy somebody else's CPUs and somebody else's networking. We're kind of okay selling any way you like to buy. My only request is just buy a little something from us,
You said, this isn't just about better models. We also have to build. We have to have world-class builders. And you said, the most world-class builder maybe that we have in the country is Elon Musk. And we talked about Colossus One and what he was doing there, standing up a couple 100,000, at the time, H100s, H200s in a coherent cluster. Now he's working on Colossus 2, which may be 500,000 GBs, millions of H100 equivalents in a coherent cluster.
I would not be surprised if he gets to a gigawatt before anybody else does.
Right.
In one.
Yeah, so say a little bit about that. The advantage of being, the builder who, isn't just building the software and the models, but understands what it takes to build those clusters.
Well, these AI supercomputers are complicated things. Yeah. The technology is complicated. Procuring it is complicated because of financing issues. Securing the land power and shell powering it is complicated. Building it all, bringing it all up. I mean, this is unquestionably the most complex systems problem humanity has ever endeavored. And so Elon has a great advantage that in his head, all of these systems are interoperating, and the interdependencies resides in one head,
yes.
including the financing.
Yes.
And so
he's a big GPT. Yeah. He's a big supercomputer himself.
He's the ultimate GPU. Yeah. Yeah. And so he has a great advantage there.
Yeah.
And he has a great sense of urgency. He has a real desire to build it, and so when will comes together with skill, unbelievable things can happen.
Yes.
Yeah, quite unique.
Something you've been so involved in is I want to talk about sovereign AI. I want to talk about China and the global AI race that's going on. And when I look back at you 30 years ago, you couldn't have imagined you were going to be hanging out in palaces with emirs and the king this week, and you're at the White House all the time. The president has said that you and NVIDIA are critical to U.S. national security. So when you look at that, first just contextualize for me, it's hard to believe that you would be in those places if sovereigns didn't view this at least as existential, as important as maybe we did nuclear in the 1940s, right? We don't have a Manhattan Project today, at least funded by the government, but it's funded by NVIDIA, it's funded by OpenAI, it's funded by Meta, it's funded by Google. We have companies today the size of nation states, and thank God for America, right, who are funding something that it appears to me presidents and kings think is existential to their future economic and national security. Would you agree with that?
Nobody needs atomic bombs. Correct. Everybody needs AI.
Well said.
Okay.
Here.
Yeah.
Here.
And so that's a very, very large difference. AI, as you know, is modern software. That's where I started. From general purpose computing to accelerated computing, from human written code line at a time to AI written code. That foundation can't be forgotten. We've reinvented computing. There's not a new species on Earth.
Yeah.
We just reinvented computing, and everybody needs computing. It needs to be democratized, which is the reason why all of the countries realize they have to get into the AI world, because everybody needs to stay in computing. There's nobody in the world that says, guess what? I used to use computers yesterday. I'm pretty good with, clubs and fire tomorrow, And so everybody needs to move into computing. It's just being modernized. That's all. Okay. Number one. It is the case that in order to participate in AI, you have to encode within AI your history, your culture, your values. And of course, AI is getting smarter and smarter so that even the core AI is able to learn these things fairly quickly. You don't have to start from the ground, from ground zero. And so I think that every country needs to have some sovereign capability. I recommend that they all use OpenAI, they all use Gemini, they all use, these open models, you use Grok, and I recommend they all do that.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend they all use Anthropic. But they should also dedicate resources to learn how to build AI. And the reason for that is because they need to learn how to build it not just for language models, but they need to build it for industrial models, manufacturing models,
national security
models. There's a whole bunch of intelligence they have to go cultivate themselves. So they ought to have sovereign capability. Every country should develop it.
And is that what you see? Is that what you're hearing around the world?
They all realize it.
They all realize
it. And they all are going to be customers of OpenAI, Anthropic, and Grok, and Gemini. But they all really need to also build their own infrastructure. And this is the big idea that what NVIDIA does is we're building infrastructure, just as every country needs energy infrastructure, the communications and internet infrastructure. Now every single country needs AI infrastructure.
So let's start with the rest of the world. Our good friend David Sachs, the AI czar, who's doing a heck of a job.
We are so lucky to have David and Sriram in Washington, D.C., doing AI and the AI czar. What a smart move by President Trump to put them in the White House, because during this pivotal time, the technology is complicated. Sriram is the only person in Washington D.C. that I think knows CUDA, and which is strange, anyways. But I just love the fact that during this pivotal time when technology is complicated, policy is complicated, the impact to the future of our nation is so great. That we have somebody who is clear-minded, dedicating the time to understand the technology, and thoughtful to help us through that.
And it would seem to me, again, going back to the Manhattan Project analogy, right, that you have a president who understands how existential this is. You have governors like Greg Abbott in Texas who want to remove regulations to accelerate because they understand how important it is. You have Secretaries Wright at Energy and Doug Bergrum at Interior and Lutnick at Commerce who also understand how important this is.
How pro-energy they are. Could you imagine the alternative? If we had an administration right now who is not pro-energy and want energy to grow in our nation so that we could have AI leadership. I just can't even think about it.
I find it ironic that just a couple years ago we were saying China's building 100 nuclear reactors. They're so far ahead of us. Like that's the primitive to AI. But now you have people, when we go to build it, everybody says, oh, it's a glut. Right? Like it seems to me that this is something that the government, it is in their interest. And we have industry and government working together in a way that I haven't seen in a long time. You've been around a long time. You're very close with President Trump at this stage. Help us understand, like, what is the nature of industry-government relationships? We saw that dinner last week with all the CEOs. You spent a lot of time. Is it unique? Have you seen anything like this in your career over the last 30 years?
It was hard to go to D.C. in the past, as you know. Getting an appointment is almost impossible. Right. President Trump has an open door to leaders who wants to come in and help them understand the future. This is an administration that believes in growth. Fundamentally, President Trump wants America to grow. If we can grow economically, we will be strong militarily. if we could grow economically, we will be secure. I've never met somebody who is secure who's poor. Right. Being rich as a nation is an essential part of national security, and he knows that. He also wants America to win the AI race. This is going to be a very long-term race, and he understands that this is a pivotal time. He wants the technology industry to run. Right. He wants everybody in the world to be built on American technology. Right. These are sensible, logical things. You know, the opposite is strange to me. If I take everything and I just reversed it, we want our country not to grow. And because we don't want our country to grow, we don't need any energy because we know we need energy to grow. And so let's not have any energy. And in fact, we don't want our technology industry to lead. He understands that our technology industry is our national treasure.
Correct.
And that technology, like corn and steel and things in the past, are now such fundamental trade opportunities. Right. It's an essential part of trade. And why would you not want American technology to be coveted by everyone so that it could be used for trade?
Right. So let's talk about, you know, the internet.
Yeah.
Google spread around the world.
Yeah.
We had democratic values spread around the world by way of search. And Google didn't have to go to Washington to get permission to do it. It just happened. We diffused our technology around the world. David Sacks has been crystal clear of the need to accelerate export licenses so that the American AI stack wins around the world, right? We're talking chips, we're talking models, we're talking data centers, et cetera. We know a year and a half ago that wasn't happening.
There's a concept that was called small yard tall fence or something like that. A small yard tall fence. Yeah. And the irony of it was described in such a way, and it was recommended in policy in such a way, it was a small yard tall fence around America. That was the strange part. I think President Trump's got it right that we want to maximize exports. We want to maximize American influence around the world. We're supposed to maximize those things.
And do you see those licenses coming? Are you seeing the acceleration in Washington? I know it's being said at the top, but are you seeing it flow down through government that's accelerating us around the world?
Secretary Lutnick was all over it.
Great.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about China. You know, what most people may not realize is I think you understand China as well as any leader in the United States.
We've been there for 30 years.
Been there for 30 years. What most people don't realize is up until a couple of years ago, you had dominant market share within China in terms of
95% market share.
Right. 95% market share in the most important thing, arguably. And you have said that our biggest own goal that we as a country could have, under the guise of somehow trying to slow them down, is we've unilaterally disarmed, we forced NVIDIA out of China, which has allowed Huawei to accelerate on the back of monopoly profits within China. And I just saw this morning, you're seeing announcements out of Huawei and Baba and others that they're going to build data centers around the world now. Huawei has a 3-year plan to pass NVIDIA, funded by the monopoly profits in the biggest AI market in the world. So it's looking like your admonition that this is a huge mistake to hand China, monopoly markets is coming true. The president said, after kind of the ban on H20s, now we have a situation where you can sell, chips to China, but there's a 15% export tax. But now it appears that the Chinese, perhaps offended by statements out of the United States, are saying, no, NVIDIA is not allowed to sell here now. Where do we stand today between NVIDIA and China? And can you reiterate kind of what you think we as a country should be doing to put ourselves in the best position to win the AI race around the world?
We have a competitive relationship with China. We should acknowledge that China rightfully should want their companies to do well. I don't for a second begrudge them for that. They should do well. They should give them as much support as they like. It's all their prerogative. And don't forget that China has some of the best entrepreneurs in the world because they came from some of the best STEM schools in the world. They're the most hungry in the world.
Yes.
996, as you know. Mm-hmm. This is a very
producing the most AI engineers in the world.
996, so the audience knows, 9 in the morning to 9 at night, 6 days a week.
Yeah.
That is their culture.
Yeah.
Okay? We're up against a formidable, innovative, hungry, fast-moving, under-regulated.
Yeah.
Okay? People don't realize this. They are very lightly regulated.
Right. Less regulated,
Way
ironically, than we are
that's
in a
right.
capitalist system.
That's right. People think that they're centrally governed, but remember, the genius of China was distributed economic systems.
Yeah.
And so all of these 33 provinces and all the mayor economy has driven enormous amount of internal competition, internal economic vibrancy, which of course has some of its side effects, but this is a vibrant, entrepreneurial, high-tech, modern industry. And to one, some of the things I heard, they could never build AI chips. That just sounded insane. Two, that China can't manufacture. China can't manufacture? If there's one thing they could do is manufacture. Three, they're years behind us. Is it 2 years, 3 years? Come on, they're nanoseconds behind us.
Nanoseconds.
Yeah, they're nanoseconds behind us. And so we've got to go compete.
Yeah.
We've got to go compete. And so the question then becomes, what's in the best interest? What's in the best interest of China, of course, is that they have a vibrant industry. They also publicly say, and rightfully, I believe they believe this, is that they want China to be an open market. They want to attract foreign investment. They want companies to come to China and compete in the marketplace.
Right.
And I believe that I hope that we'll return to that in our context, answering your question, what do I see in the future? I do hope, because they say it, their leaders say it, and I take it at face value, and I believe it because I think it makes sense for China, that what's in the best interest of China is for foreign companies to invest in China, compete in China, and for them to also have vibrant competition themselves.
Yeah.
And they would also like to come out of China and participate around the world. Yeah. That is, I think, is a fairly sensible outcome. And what we need to do as a country is to enable our technology industry, which today is I'm privileged to be working in an industry that is our national treasure. We have to acknowledge it is our national treasure. It is our best industry. It is our single best industry.
Yeah.
Why would we not allow this industry to go compete for its survival? For this industry to go and proliferate the technology around the world so that we could have the world be built on top of American technology, so that we can maximize our economic success, maximize our geopolitical influence, maximize this technology industry during such a vibrant time, such a pivotal time, to allow it to thrive.
The skeptic says, Jensen just wants to sell more chips, and if he can sell them to China, great, he'll sell them to China. He doesn't care about, what that means for America. That's a skeptic. Now,
Can I just address the skeptics?
Yeah.
Just because I want America ecosystem and economy to grow, it doesn't make me wrong.
Right.
Okay? So first of all, everything that has been said so far, that's been made up so far about China has proven to be wrong. The facts are just wrong.
Right.
The ground truth is wrong. And so just because we want America to win, just because we want this industry to grow, doesn't make me wrong.
Correct. And I think anybody who knows you, and now the president, certainly myself, you deeply care about the country. You deeply want the United States of America to win the global AI race. You just happen to believe, and I think you have as much experience or more experience than anyone, that it inures to our advantage. The probability of us winning the global AI race actually goes up if you are competing in China.
That's right.
Because it allows us to tap into half of the world's AI engineers, keeping them, in this ecosystem. And let's be clear, with the companies we're talking about here, ByteDance, Alibaba, et cetera, these are companies that are largely owned by American investors.
Yeah, right.
Right? These are global companies that are building recommender engines.
And by the way, extraordinary technologies.
Incredible companies. And so I think, and I'm hopeful, that the argument that you're making vis-a-vis China, which is a harder argument than diffusion to the rest of the world, I understand that. And that's why I thought when the president said, I don't know, it's a flip of a coin. Maybe Jensen's right. Maybe the other guys are right. But if Jensen's willing to put a little bit of 15% into the U.S. Treasury as a hedge on that, then I'll go for it. But I was really disappointed on the heels of that. I think if the Chinese feel like they're being taken advantage of, that we're going to send them chips that are 10 years old or something, then I get why they had that response.
H20 is really quite spectacular still, and of course it's not as good as Blackwell, and I get that.
Yeah.
I'm patient, and I believe that they're wise, or they're thinking through their situation. They have larger agendas to deal with. Vis-a-vis the United States, there are a lot of discussions going on, but I'll come back to the ground truth, fundamental truth. I believe that it is in the best interest of China that NVIDIA is able to serve that market and compete in that market. I fundamentally believe it's in the best interest of China. It is, of course, fantastic interest in the fantastic interest of the United States.
Yeah.
It is but those two truths can coexist. It is possible for both to be true, and I believe it is both true. And so I'm rather, even though I tell all of our investors that our guidance includes no China, and I appreciate all of our investors to include no China in any of our guidance. We've got plenty of growth opportunities outside, and we've got all of that is true. It doesn't make China not important to us. It's very important to us. Anybody who thinks that the Chinese market is not important has their head deep in the sand.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the most important markets in the world, smart markets, as you know, smart people doing smart things, and we want to be there.
Yeah.
And I think it's in the best interest of both countries that we are there. And so I think when I take a step back, I am confident that ultimately the wisdom will prevail.
Yes. Yes.
I've always been confident that wisdom prevails. I've always been confident that truth prevails, and it's taken me this far. And I believe that to be fundamentally true now. And so these things will get sorted out, and we will have the opportunity to go compete in that China market.
I'm not very political, but very topical is the administration's decision to charge $100,000 per H-1B visa. You've spent a lot of time with the president. You've called him our secret weapon in AI. I also know you want to recruit the best and brightest to our country.
Yeah.
So how do you think about the decision to charge $100,000 per H-1B visa? Does this make it easier or harder to recruit talent? And does perhaps it's a little different for large companies or small companies? Like, how do you think about it?
So I'm going to start with it's a great start.
Hold on, you said it's a great start.
It's a great start. I'm just going to start there.
Wow.
And the reason for that is this. That implies I hope it's not the end. But I think it's a great start. I just hope it's not the end. Here's what I fundamentally believe. America has a singular brand reputation that no country in the world has. And no country in the world is in the position or in the horizon to be able to say, come to America and realize the American dream. What country has the word dream behind it?
Yes. It's part of its brand.
We are utterly singular. And you're talking to somebody who represents the American dream. My parents didn't have any money, sent us over here. We started from nothing. You guys know I bust tables, wash dishes, clean toilets, and here I am.
Yeah.
This is the American dream. President Trump knows that. We want legal immigrants.
Yeah.
There's a difference between legal immigrants and illegal immigrants. But the idea that it's a country that's free for all doesn't make sense. And so now the question is, how do we go from the idea that we want to protect fundamentally the American dream to dealing with illegal immigrants at such a large scale? How do we find a logical, pragmatic solution?
Right.
So the idea that we put a $100,000 price tag on H-1B probably sets the bar a little too high. But as a first bar, it at least eliminates illegal immigration, and that's a good start.
How does it eliminate illegal immigration?
Well, it eliminates
Abuse of the H-1B.
Abuse of H-1B.
Yeah.
At least, and that's a good start. And at least we can have a conversation. So one of the things that we know about President Trump, he's a good listener. He actually listens. I mean, he listens to you, he listens to me, and he doesn't have to. And he listens to a lot of people, and he's integrating a lot of information. And this is obviously a very complicated issue. And so I think that this is a fine start. It's a fine start. But I'm not confused that anyone in the administration, anyone in the White House is confused that legal immigration is the foundation of the American dream. And it is the ultimate brand that we want to protect. And that's the future we want to protect.
And I would also say, it seems to me that certainly Sachs and other people in the administration know that we have to recruit the world's best and brightest. We should not sacrifice the greatness of the brand. Charging $100,000, or let's say that, it got lowered to 50 or whatever the case is, it does seem like it tilts the playing field in favor of big companies who can effectively sponsor all these people.
Right.
And it's more challenging for the startup ecosystem where people are already super expensive.
No doubt.
And now I got to pay this fee on top of it.
It also has an unintended consequence. It might accelerate investment outside the United States.
Right.
And so there are unintended consequences. But like I said, start somewhere, move towards the right answer.
Right.
Oftentimes people want to go directly from a wrong answer, wrong condition.
Right.
We don't want this condition where we're at.
Right.
And directly jump to the perfect answer is hard to find.
Right.
Just start somewhere. It's the entrepreneurial way.
It's important to me, the president talked about before when he was running for office, he wanted to staple a green card to the diplomas of these STEM students.
So smart.
People coming to the United States from China AI researchers studying at Stanford.
Yeah.
Like, we want to keep them here. We want to get, and by the way, if their families can't get here, they're going to leave after a few years. So you might even want to make it easier for their families to come here and others. Are you confident that we have a strategic plan in this administration? This is a start, but your conversations, they give you confidence that we have a broader strategic plan to make sure we're recruiting the best and the brightest?
I don't know that I have an answer for that.
Okay.
But I understand that where we're at is not where we want to be.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody's lost their focus on, the American dream, the importance of immigration, the importance of attracting all of the world's best talent to the United States, create the conditions for them to stay here. There are things that are done from time to time that works against what I just described.
Right.
Making foreign students uncomfortable.
Right.
And being here in the United States.
Threatens the brand.
Yeah. Let's not forget that it's okay to be competitive with China, but be careful not to be tough on Chinese. And so we need to make sure that slippery slope isn't crossed.
Yeah.
And so there are all of these things that goes along with finesse and nuance.
Yes.
But the fact of the matter is, we know where we want to be. We know we're in a difficult situation. We don't want to be here. And President Trump doesn't have much time to move us in that direction.
Right.
And so to the extent that we move in that direction, I believe it's a good start.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I heard from a Chinese researcher leading one of our leading labs in the U.S. that 3 years ago, 90% of the top AI researchers graduating from universities in China wanted to come to the United States and did come to the United States to work in our leading labs. And he guessed that today that's closer to 10 or 15%, right? So seeing a precipitous drop.
That's precisely the concern that we have.
Right. So have you seen this? Have you're paying attention to both markets. Do you see this? And what are the things we need to do in order to reverse that?
You definitely see a greater concern of Chinese students who come here and remain here. Yeah. Or many of them who come here for school and are thinking about going elsewhere.
Right.
Many of them thinking about Europe.
Right.
And so I think we need to be super, super concerned about this. Yeah. This is a source of existential crisis. This is definitely the early indicators of a future problem.
Right. Right.
Smart people's desire to come to America and smart students' desire to stay, those are what I would call KPIs.
Yes.
Early indicators of future success.
Yes. I think of it a bit like the Warriors. If they have an advantage of recruiting all the best players in the NBA, right, then they can continue to win championships.
Yeah.
But the second that recruiting pipeline, right, because the brand of the Warriors gets diminished or something else happens, then they're not going to be able to recruit the best future players, and you're not going to win championships.
That's it.
And when you talk about the American dream so eloquently, that being brand USA, right, the right to come here and to do what you've done. And, so I hope that the feedback to this administration, it's not just the administration, it's also just how we as a country talk about immigration.
That's right.
Right? This needs to be the place that welcomes the best and the brightest, that attracts, that has a strategic plan for recruiting the best and the brightest, and making sure that this is the place that they want to work.
As you know, there's a phrase, and I didn't hear about this phrase until just a few years ago, China hawks.
Yes.
And apparently, that if you're a China hawk, you get to wear that label with pride. It's almost like a badge of honor.
Right.
It's a badge of shame. There's no question it's a badge of shame. There's no question that although they want what's in the best interest of our country, and we all want what's in the best interest of our country, destroying that pipeline of the American dream is not patriotic. Right. They think they're doing the right thing for our country, but it's not patriotic. Not even a little bit. Right. And so we need to continue to be the great country we are, to have the confidence of a great country.
Yes. Well said.
And to have the confidence of a great country, and have somebody who wants to compete with us, and to have the attitude, bring it on.
Right.
Bring it on.
Right.
Because I believe in our people. I believe in our people. I believe in the people that are here. I believe in our culture. I believe in our country. I believe in our system. Bring it on.
And is it your take that that's where the president is? Like he's a pragmatist. He's a believer in the growth and the ability of the United States to compete. It seems to me that's where he is.
There's no question President Trump is the bring it on president.
Right. And he doesn't seem to me like, the reason I'm confident, and I've said on this pod, that I think he'll get a big deal done with China.
I really, really do hope so.
Yeah.
And I think he speaks positively, with great respect and great eloquence about his relationship and the importance of China. Not one time have I ever heard him say the word decouple, which we heard a lot in the last administration.
Right.
You can't decouple against the two most important relationships for the next century. That doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah. Decoupling is exactly the wrong concept.
Right. I mean, it seems to me he and Scott Besson are saying, listen, we need to make America great. We need to reindustrialize America. We need to balance and make sure that we have fair trade, that we protect industries that we need to help build, that China helps us do that, recognizing that we have helped them do it over the course of the last 25 years. But that ultimately, he said, the best way to understand me is I'm a great deal maker. I make deals, right? Whereas I think in other camps, there are people who are iconoclastic or dogmatic. It's the Mearsheimer view of China, that there's a great power struggle, one must win and one must lose, versus this idea.
The idea that every country has to look exactly like ours.
Right.
We want diversity. Right.
Yeah. You want America to win, but that doesn't have to come at the expense of poking an eye and telling somebody else they have to lose.
Because we're that confident.
Yeah, we're that confident.
Because we're that mighty. Because we're that incredible. I've got no trouble. As you know, I've got no trouble working with all my colleagues in the ecosystem.
Right.
And notice, we just did the ultimate deal, right? Partnering with Intel, a company that spent most of its life trying to put us out of business.
Right.
And I had no trouble partnering with them.
Right.
And the reason for that is because, number one, bring it on.
Yes.
And number two, the future is so much greater. It doesn't have to be all us or them. It could be us and them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But nonetheless, bring it on.
Yeah. Agreed. You mentioned something that's profoundly important to both of us. You and I have talked a lot about this, the American dream. Yeah. And it was, I think, Abraham Lincoln who said, fundamental to the American dream is the right to rise.
Yeah. That's
the
right.
belief that your kids can do better than you did.
That's right.
Right. And you've experienced the right to rise. We've all experienced the right to rise in America.
Someday you go to Wikipedia, you can look up American Dreams, my picture.
Right.
Yeah.
And
the ultimate
yet,
American dream.
And yet we live at this time where, because of the nature of these technological systems. We have companies that are going to be worth 10 trillion. We'll probably have individuals that are worth $1 trillion. Those are the incentives that give people the encouragement to rise. But at the same time, when we head into this age of abundance, something that I was deeply worried about was that too many people get left behind.
Yeah.
Right? And they feel left out and left behind. So it makes sense for them to attack this system of capitalism. Something that you and I worked on together, and I'm deeply grateful for, was the idea of Invest America, that we have to start every kid at birth on the capitalist right to rise journey, give them $1,000 in great companies like NVIDIA
Ultimate Social Security
and OpenAI, et cetera. And they benefit, right? As the country wins, they win. And they own it individually. They can see it on their phone.
Every kid is a shareholder in the future of America.
So on the 200, because of your support, and I wanted to take the chance on this podcast and the support of...
Well, I want to thank you for starting it, for driving it.
Yeah.
Thank you. What a great idea.
And, so this...
You're a genius.
Please. This passed in the Big Beautiful Bill.
Yeah.
Most people don't even realize that yet. Starting in 2026, every child born forevermore in the history of this country will start off with an investment account at birth, seeding $1,000 in the best American companies. And your company has agreed to add to the accounts of not only the kids who work for your employees, but maybe even kids of others. I'm going to adopt schools, and lots of philanthropists and companies. We think every company across America.
Wonderful way for companies to give back.
Right.
Yeah. As
part of the 401k. This seems to me to be part of the change in the social contract that needs to occur, because if we're seeing this exponential progress, we know that the evolution of government and the social contract needs to keep up with it. Obviously, President Trump and bipartisan group in the House and Senate passed this into law. So maybe just talk to us a little bit when you think about the pace and magnitude of changes that are coming, right? I know you believe it will be a net good, but there are also going to be a bunch of people displaced along the way. We probably need things like this and other things, right, in order to, bring everybody along for the journey.
There's several things that President Trump has done, and let me just start there, has done that is incredibly good for bringing everybody along. The first thing is reindustrializing America.
Yeah.
President Trump, Secretary Lutnick, they're all in behind that, all the work that they're doing, encouraging companies to come build it here in the United States, investing in factories and reskilling and upskilling that skilled labor workforce, incredibly valuable to our country. The idea that we no longer make it only that you get a PhD or you go to one of the great schools, and only in that way can you build a great life.
Right.
And deserve to have a great living. We've got to change all that. That doesn't make any sense. We love craft.
Right.
I love people who make things with their hands, and we're now going to go back and build things.
Yes.
Build magnificent, incredible things. I love that.
Yes.
That's going to transform America. There's no question about that. There's a whole band of an economy, a whole band of society that has been largely left behind because we outsourced everything.
Right.
Now, I'm not suggesting we insource everything.
Right.
All the people arguing about, manufacturing tennis shoes and toothpicks. Right. I mean, that's denigrating a perfectly good discussion into some insane level. We've got to recognize that reindustrializing America is just fundamentally going to be transformative. Number one. Number two.
And aspirational.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Elon taking us to Mars, watching spaceships caught with, chopsticks out of the sky. This is not only great for the industrializing base of America, it's aspirational for
fantastic.
America.
That's right. Yeah. And then of course, AI.
Yeah.
It is the greatest equalizer. Just think, everybody can have an AI now. The ultimate equalizer. We've closed the technology divide. Remember, the last time that somebody had to wants to use a computer for their economic or career benefit, they have to learn C++ or C or at least Python. Now they just have to learn human, And if you don't know how to program an AI, you tell the AI, Hi, I don't know how to program an AI. How do I program an AI? And the AI explains it to you.
Or does it for you.
It does it for you. And so it's incredible. Isn't that right? And we've now closed the technology divide with technology.
Yeah.
This is something that everybody's got to engage.
Yeah.
OpenAI has 800 million active users. Gosh, it really needs to be 6 billion.
Yeah.
Right? It really needs to be 8 billion soon. And so I think that's number one. And number two. And then number three, I think the AI will change tasks.
Yeah.
The thing that people confuse is there are many tasks that will be eliminated. There are many tasks
Right.
that will actually be created. But it is very likely that for many people, their jobs are gainfully protected.
Right.
And so, for example, I'm using AI all the time. You're using AI all the time. My analysts are using AI all the time. My engineers, every one of them use AIs continuously.
Yeah.
And we're hiring more engineers. We're hiring more people. We're hiring across the board. The reason for that is because we have more ideas.
Yes.
We can now go pursue more ideas. The reason for that is because our company became more productive. And because we became more productive, we became more rich. Because we became more rich, we can hire more people to go after those ideas.
Right.
The concept that AI comes along and therefore there's going to be a mass destruction of jobs starts with the premise that we have no more ideas.
Right.
It starts with the premise we have nothing left to do.
Right.
Everything we're doing in our lives today,
Yeah.
this is the end.
Yeah.
And if somebody else were to do that one task for me, I have one task less. Now I have to sit there and wait for something.
Yes.
Wait for retirement, sit on my rocking chair.
Yeah.
That idea doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
And so I think that intelligence is not a zero-sum game. The more intelligent people I'm surrounded by, the more geniuses I'm surrounded by, surprisingly, the more ideas I have, the more problems I imagine that we can go solve, the more work we create, the more jobs we create. And so I think I don't know what the world looks like in a million years. That's going to be left for my children. But for the next several decades, my sense is that economy is going to grow. Lots of new jobs are going to be created. Every job will be changed. Some jobs will be lost. And we're not going to be, riding horses on streets. And those things, it'll be fine.
Humans are famously skeptical and terrible at understanding compounding systems. And they're even worse at understanding exponential systems that accelerate with size.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about exponentials a lot today. The great futurist Ray Kurzweil said, in the 21st century, we're not going to have 100 years of progress. We're likely to have 20,000 years of progress. Right? You said earlier, we're so fortunate to be living at this moment and contributing to this moment. I'm not going to ask you to look out 10 or 20 or 30 years because I think it's so challenging. But when we think about 2030, things like robots.
30 years is easier than 2030.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll grant you license to go out 30. As you think out over the course of, I like these shorter time frames because they have to marry bits and atoms.
More important.
Bits and atoms, the hard part of building this stuff, right? Yeah. Because everybody's saying it's going to happen.
Science fiction's interesting, but not helpful.
Exactly. But if we have 20,000 years of progress, reflect on that statement by Ray. Reflect on exponentials and how all of our listeners, whether you work in government, whether you're in a startup, whether you're, running a big company, need to be thinking about the accelerating rate of change, the accelerating rate of growth, and how you will, be co-intelligent in this new world.
Well, there are a lot of things that many people have already said, and they're all very sensible. I think the in the next 5 years, one of the things that is really cool that's going to get solved is the fusion of artificial intelligence and mechatronics, robotics, and so we're going to have AIs that are going to be wandering around us, and that everybody knows. We all know that we're going to all grow up with our own R2-D2.
Yeah.
And that R2-D2 will remember everything about us and coach us along the way and be our companion. We already know that. Okay. And so the idea and the idea that every human will have their own GPUs associated with them in the cloud, and that there are 8 billion people, 8 billion GPUs. That's a viable outcome.
Yeah.
And so
And each having their own model that's fine-tuned for them?
fine-tuned for them, and that AI is in the cloud is also embodied in a whole bunch of, it's embodied in your car, it's embodied in your own robot, it's everywhere with you. Yeah. And so that I think that future is a very sensible thing. The idea that we're going to understand the infinite complexity of biology and understanding the system of biology, and how to predict it and have digital twins of everybody. Our own digital twin for healthcare, like we have a digital twin for shopping at Amazon. Right. Why wouldn't we have our digital twin at healthcare? Of course we would. And so, a system that predicts how we're going to age, what disease we're likely going to have, and anything that's about to happen, maybe even next week or tomorrow afternoon, and predict it early. Of course, we're going to have all that. And so, I think all of that is a given. I think the part that I'm asked a lot by CEOs that I work with about, now, given all of that, what happens? What do you do? And this is a common sense of things that move fast.
Right.
If you have a train that's about to get faster and faster and go exponential, the only thing that you really need to do is get on it.
Yeah.
And once you get on it, you'll figure everything else out along the way. Right. And so to predict where that train's going to be, right, and try to shoot a bullet at it, yeah, or predict where that train's going to be and it's going exponentially faster every second, and go figure out what intersection to wait for it, right, that's impossible. Yeah. Just get on it while it's going kind of slowly,
right,
and go exponential along the way.
A lot of people think this just happened overnight. You've been at this for 35 years. I remember hearing Larry Page say, probably around 2005 or 2006, that the end state of Google will be when the machine can predict the question before you even answer it, before you even ask it, and give you the answer without having to look. Right. I heard Bill Gates say in 2016.
Because contextually, you must be asking you must be wondering about that.
Right.
Yeah.
I heard Bill Gates say in 2016, when somebody said, hasn't all the things been done? We've had the internet, we've had cloud, we've had mobile, social, et cetera. He said, we haven't even started. He said, what do you think? Why would you say that? He said, we won't even begin until machines go from being dumb calculators to beginning to think for themselves, to think with us, right? Kind of that is the moment, right, that we're in. I think to have leaders like you, leaders like Sam and Elon, Satya, et cetera, it's such an extraordinary advantage for this country, right? And to have the cooperation that we see between a system of risk capital that I take, that I'm part of, which can provide the risk capital for people to do. We're not relying on government having a Manhattan Project. We can actually do this ourselves and together for the benefit of the country. It's an extraordinary time.
And at a scale that's unimaginable.
Right. It's an extraordinary time. But I also think, one of the things that I'm just grateful is that we have leaders who also understand their responsibility to the fact that we are creating change at an accelerating rate. And we know while it will most likely be great for the vast majority, there'll be challenges along the way, and we'll deal with those as they come. And raise the floor for everybody and make sure that this is a win, not just for some elite plutocrats at the top hanging out in Silicon Valley.
And don't scare them,
but it's
bring
a win,
them along.
It's a win.
Don't scare them,
That's right.
Bring them along.
And we will.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Exactly.